how important do you think 83 is to him? Because, the other number everyone always talked about with Tiger was 18. Jack's 18 majors. He has 15. Obviously, that's always been his stated goal. But if he can't get 3 more, how important do you think that number is to him?
I think that's probably the more tangible one at this point in his career. The cherry on top would be as if it would be another major and it would be 83. We still wouldn't get to 18, but I still do think in a perfect world, maybe Tiger could do it. Ben Hogan did it on one leg. Maybe Tiger could do it too.
Hey everybody, Trey Wingo here. Thanks for being with us and welcome into another episode of Straight Facts Homie, the podcast where we try to use data and analysis to tell you how things are going to happen and why they did happen. Plus, we have great conversations with great guests around the world of sports. If you like what you're seeing here, and we hope you do, please click that like and subscribe button wherever you're getting this podcast, especially on YouTube. It really helps us get out to more people and they find the product. One of the more interesting names in golf over the last 20 years has been someone who's been sort of Tiger Woods affiliated. It's Notah Begay. Notah Begay grew up playing alongside Tiger in junior events, was a partner of his on the Ryder Cup, won several times on the President's Cup, won several times on the PGA Tour. So we took this opportunity to sit down with Notah, talk about, is it possible that Tiger can still be competitive? What are his future plans? What are the plans of the PGA Tour? And also his journey into golf, which is very, very unusual and unique. Please sit back and enjoy the conversation here with Notah Begay. Notah, thanks for being with us. We've had a lot of people in golf come on over the last couple of months, and I always start with this question, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it. I feel like, well, let me put it this way. How important do you think the 2025 season was for the PGA Tour in relation to everything that's gone over the last couple of years?
I think it was a paramount season for the PGA Tour for a number of reasons. Number one, it clearly established itself as the premier collection of golf talent in the world, regardless of name recognition, regardless of pedigree, in the sense of some of the players that defected to LIV did take with them quite a bit of championships and majors. But I think what the general public and the golf fan did establish is that they want to see golf that matters. They want to see golf that, in certain cases, the results change lives, that people are legitimately crying on the 18th green with their families because it's something that they've envisioned since they were 10 years old. And so it was great in that. And then second part of that is that it was great to establish the tour's identity without Tiger.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing. There's life before Tiger, there's life with Tiger, and then unfortunately the tour didn't do a great job of planning for life after Tiger. But luckily things worked out where the players and the results and everybody that sort of makes up the body of what the tour represents as a product is greatly valued in the marketplace.
Yeah, we're hold on to that Tiger thought. We're going to get back to that in a second because I'm not sure people totally understand the connection between you and Tiger in full. But how important was it for them to have that paramount season based on, there had been a couple of body blows with LIV taking away those guys. How not only was it paramount, but how important was it for the tour to find that footing?
It was incredible, and it didn't hurt that Scottie Scheffler was, albeit he's not the perennial superstar that people want him to be. He sort of goes about his business, likes to fly under the radar as much as a number one can. But when he starts doing things that only one other player in history has done, you have to watch. And so he created must-see TV on golf again, not because of his courageous recovery shots or his fist pumps or just the fact that, he transcended the game, so to speak. That was Tiger's era. This is the Scottie Scheffler era in the sense where he's just beating you and everybody else in the game with just some of the best golf that we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it because I think they're the two most dominant players over a certain amount of time we've seen, this century. but I think the way they've done it is very different. With Tiger, it felt like you get these thunder strikes out of nowhere, and suddenly go on this incredible tear, and these one or two incredible shots would define it. Or I feel like Scottie Scheffler's the definition of that. If you just let water drip on a rock over time, it eventually wears it down. And I feel that's Scottie's superpower. It's not so much the miraculous shot of the recovery, it's just the incredible consistency, and it doesn't waver. And eventually, it's that constant boom, 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 boom that just allows everything to dissipate.
Yeah, and then just the way that he goes about his business again, very understated. He's not in every single commercial on television. Really tries to maintain a bit of privacy with his home life off the golf course. So you don't see him doing a lot of corporate self-promotional type of things. He really wants to focus on winning, keeping his game sharp, and one thing that I always tell, I think that encapsulates what Scottie Scheffler stands for is virtually every single week that Scottie Scheffler starts a tournament week, he starts one of his practice sessions using a grip trainer. Now, a grip trainer is a tool used by teachers to teach 15, 20, 25 handicaps how to hold the club right.
Yeah.
A PGA Tour player almost never uses a grip trainer because they've done it 100,000 times. They don't need to sort of figure out their grip, but it gives you just a little bit of insight into how he views the game. He takes nothing for granted. He starts each day as if it's square one again. And I think that's what's added to the consistent level of high level performance that we've seen from him is that every week that he starts out, he's looking to sort of establish his presence from the get-go.
Yeah, one of my favorite sort of memories from Scotty over the last couple of seasons was the year he was in a duel with his good friend Sam Burns at Colonial. And he was on the 17th or 18th hole, and he's getting ready to hit, and he backed off. And his caddy, Ted Scott, said, "Everything good?" He goes, "Yeah, I just wasn't feeling it." And then he went through the process again. And, I think about that a lot when I play with my friends, and I'm like, wait a minute, if the best player in the world needs to back off every once in a while because he just wasn't feeling it, that's a really good indication that maybe, and I'm not advocating slow play, I hate slow play, but maybe the rest of us should maybe do that every once in a while just to make sure we're focused and in the moment.
Well, I think Sean Connery said it best when asked in an interview why he liked golf so much. And he says, when you play golf and you try and do your best at golf, that's the only place you can be.
Yeah.
You can't be off thinking about another movie or an appearance or something related to your personal life. You have to be completely dedicated to that moment in which you are trying to execute that shot. He goes, otherwise you won't be any good.
Yeah.
And the professional level of golfers do understand that 2.5 seconds that it takes to execute a golf swing requires quietness in the mind.
Yeah.
And that's what they're all trying to do is they're trying to quiet the mind down so that they can focus on whatever that particular swing key is, whatever shot they're seeing in their mind, and whatever challenges are actually being presented by the situation.
You mentioned Tiger, and obviously, most folks know, but in case they don't, you have a real connection with him. You guys were teammates at Stanford, and you were the one that came up with his nickname when he was a freshman at Stanford, which was Urkel, right?
That's right. And we were playing. Tiger and I have been friends since he was 9 years old, so over
Yeah.
40 years now. And we first sort of got to know each other at the what used to be the Optimist Junior World Golf Championships in San Diego. He was playing in my brother Clint's age group, and I went to watch my brother, but I had been hearing about this kid who'd been winning tournaments by 15 and 20 shots, and I said, I've got to go watch this kid. And I got to run into a young Tiger Woods, age of 9, out there competing with older kids and beating older kids, and just the pizzazz and the energy and the way that he went about his business was really captivating even at that age. And so after the round, I went up and introduced him myself to him, and we became friends. And we would meet at junior tournaments along the way, and we would stay together. And Earl was always traveling with him, and my parents couldn't travel because it was expensive. And so Earl would always look out for me. He'd always make sure I had dinner. He always made sure I had a ride to the course. He always made sure sort of I could get to and from the airports when we were flying out of town. And so we became like almost like pseudo brothers almost. And we carried that friendship into college. And so um, you know, I've been there through every step of the way, the good, the bad, the ugly, with my friend, and I have the utmost respect for everything that he's done, and nobody can really understand just how many mountains he had to climb to put those records up and what he had to sacrifice to put those records up. But nobody ever worked harder at the game than Tiger Woods, and possibly nobody ever had more talent, which is why I consider him the best to ever play.
Well, you get no argument from me there. And just for clarification, he got the nickname Urkel because he was a skinny kid with big glasses and had all these allergies. He was
Oh,
sneezing
that's
all the
right.
time,
That's
right?
where that
Yeah,
question started. Yes.
yeah,
So we were at a junior. We at the PGA National Junior in Palm Beach Gardens,
yeah.
and we were staying together. And he wore contacts, and so he went into the bathroom. I think it was the first time we ever roomed together at a junior event. And he came out, and he had these big old thick glasses, thick as Coke bottles.
Yeah.
And I go, you look like Urkel, because at the time that sitcom Family
Right,
Matters was really
right.
kind of big on network television. And I go, Urkel, that's your name. And so as soon when he arrived on the farm at Stanford the first week, I made sure that the entire team called him Urkel, and then that quickly stopped as soon as he started beating everybody on a weekly basis.
I was about to say, I'm sure he loved that. I'm sure it wasn't motivation for him at all in any way, shape, or form.
No, he was great. He's
Yeah.
always, Tiger likes that, and I think that's why he gravitates toward people that will give him a hard time. I mean, I think that's really been a nice thing between him and Justin Thomas over the last 10 years is JT will go at Tiger, will give him the business. And I think that's what Tiger appreciates. Tiger wants to be one of the guys, and it's very hard for people in the golf community to treat him like one of the guys because they know that what he's accomplished in his career is just so incredible.
You mentioned earlier the post Tiger Woods era, and we're just coming off another back surgery in October. Do you think that we've seen the end of Tiger as a threat in real major competition?
I think so. Consistent threat. I never
Yeah,
take anything away from the guy. I think that in his heart of hearts, 83 is a big number. It's an
yeah,
important number. Um, and I think there's a couple venues that, you know, I think could accommodate his current physical condition, which I think the biggest problem in the conversations that I've had with him is the walking. That's
yeah.
it. He hits it great. He's in a tremendous physical condition. His ball speeds are fast enough. They're 175 to 180, which is just that's adequate for the PGA Tour. Um, and it's just can he walk 72 holes plus a pro am? I don't know. And that's kind of the big question. I think that a major championship venue with flatter terrain, Hilton Head with flatter terrain, Colonial with flatter terrain, I think might be targets that, and those are two venues that he's typically never really played at. He played Colonial
Right.
once and never went back. Um, and I don't think he's ever been to Hilton Head. So I think those are two things that you may see at some point. But we're all also dying to see him on the Champions Tour, which he can take a cart. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the walking part becomes alleviated at that point if he wants to just kind of enjoy the competitive environment again.
All right, so that really brings up two questions. You mentioned 83, and for those that aren't aware, he's tied with Sam Snead for the most wins in PGA Tour history, 80 and at 82 when he won the Zozo Championship. Jesus, 5 years ago now. Um, how important do you think that number is to him? And because the other number everyone always talked about with Tiger was 18. Jack's 18 majors, he has 15. Obviously, that's always been his stated goal. But if he
Yes.
can't get three more, how important do you think 83 is to him?
I think that's probably the more tangible one at this point in his career, if there were to be one. I think because the majors there's only four of them, and the venues are typically, I mean, Augusta's one of the top three hilliest courses players walk
Yeah.
all year. Um, and maybe the Open Championship where distance is less of a consideration when you look at guys like Francesco Molinari, Brian Harmon, not high ball or long ball hitters that have both walked away with the claret jug. So that is and one of the best shot makers in the world in Tiger Woods. Like that might be the actual best fit that we're looking for, that he would be looking for in terms of adding another major. The cherry on top would be as if it would be another major and it would be 83. We still wouldn't get to 18. I think that's
Yeah,
kind of out of reach, but I still do
right.
think in a perfect world, Ben Hogan did it on one leg. Maybe Tiger could do it too.
No, well, the similarities there would be remarkable because those are the two top winning percentages all time in the history of the PGA Tour. Tiger, I think, is at 21.6 and Hogan is 21.3. It's really fascinating along those lines. You also mentioned the senior tour. I have always thought that that's not something he would enjoy, but maybe because it might be a way for him to be a little more competitive because he can take the carts. Do you think Tiger Woods will be an active participant on the senior tour at some point?
I don't know about active. I think he's going to try it. I think that you can only sit in your house and think about golf and hit balls at the range for so long when you want to go out and
Yeah,
you want to see if I can beat somebody. And the level of competition I've been out there for 2 years so far is extremely high. The players work very hard and they're putting up some incredible scores. I mean, I've walked out of there feeling like I've played some pretty high quality golf and I finished 15th.
yeah,
And I lose by 10. But what Tiger still possesses that I don't possess at the age of 53 is that he can still carry the ball, 285. And out on the
right.
Champions Tour, that's a huge, huge asset. Anybody that's finishing in the top 10 in the Charles Schwab Cup points is carrying the ball over 280. There's a huge distance advantage out there. Um, but I do think he will try it, and I hope he likes it because the world of golf with Tiger is just it's so much better. It's so much more fun, even if we just see little glimpses of him from time to time.
No, no question. And you mentioned you were there for the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I remember interviewing you after he won the Masters in 2019 on the radio show I did with Mike Golick. And you told me one of the most incredible stories after that last surgery, the last back surgery before that one. Like he had trouble getting out of a chair, right? At one point, you had to help him get out of a chair. That's how sort of debilitated he was.
Yeah, we were in the house. It was time to go pick Charlie up from school, and he's like, "Do you mind driving me?" I said, "I don't mind at all." And he had a special chair that would sort of level out and take some weight or pressure off his low back where the surgery was, and he put chair up upright so he physically couldn't get himself out of the chair. So it was mixed emotions for me at that point. I was looking at my dear friend in the world who I care about so much, but I was looking at also at one of the greatest athletes in history that couldn't get out of a sitting chair.
Yeah.
So it was sadness on one point, compassion on the other. Um, but also not wanting to show those things because I knew that he believed he could win again. And I didn't want to be the one that was taken away from that mindset because his mindset is probably his biggest asset. And I think that when people ask me what was Tiger's biggest strength is how he approached the game mentally. And I think so many of the young up and coming golfers now focus so much on their ball striking and their stats and their this and their that, and
Yeah.
they can't see that Tiger was so intense and focused that that was his superpower. But I got him out of the chair, and I don't remember that image of Kellen Winslow after the game in Miami getting
Chargers,
carried off the
Dolphins.
field,
Yeah.
right? He was. I mean, his weight was on me. I'm like, man, this guy's bigger than he looks, right? Because I was trying to, I was having help him get into the car, and he laid the passenger seat back again. That's to take the stress off the back. We drove to school, and we were waiting in the carpool line, and he goes, "Wow," he goes, "You and I used to travel the world and play golf and live kind of a carefree life. And look at us now. We're both broken down with bad backs, waiting in the carpool line to pick our kids up at school." So we had a really good laugh about that. And um, but yeah, it was interesting, and then to go from that to winning the Masters, I
Yeah.
just like I said, that's why right now, talking to you, I will not say he won't win 83 because I can't. I've seen too many crazy things from him.
It's like when Tom Brady was with the Patriots or Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. I'm never going to doubt the guy. If he says he can do it, until he's gone forever. I'm always going to hold out hope and belief that he'll find a way to get something done because I've seen it happen so many times. If we're talking about the post Tiger Woods era, as we were, and I thought this year was the best era or the best year for the PGA Tour since the Tiger dominant era. How do we go? How do we keep it going forward? Obviously, Brian Rolapp is a guy I know well from the NFL side. He said some really interesting things that have some people really excited and some people a little concerned that are traditionalists on the golf side. What do you think the expectations are for how Brian might shake it up, or what do you think he should do?
Well, I think he should do what he's good at, and I think that he's going to bring golf, the game of golf, into the modern era in terms of a business and um, assigning quantitative values to our assets and really getting a better understanding of just what various revenue streams are important, where there's opportunity, what we have to maintain, what we can capture, and to make the tour overall. Um, I think, more efficient and effective as an economic engine in the modern sports era. There's so much competition out there from different leagues and different things trying to take people's eyeballs away from TV screens, and people's attention spans have gotten shorter. And so we've got to do a better job of making sure that our stars show up as often as possible. And I think that he's going to do a good job with that. Now, that being said, um, I think the journeymen, the journey's over. Uh,
Yeah.
I think their time is done, and that's unfortunate because the tour has always been great about um, providing opportunity for numbers 100 to 150 on the money list. But I don't think that's any longer going to be the case because with 100 tour cars out there, with the number of signature events that are out there, breaking into the top 100 is going to be an extremely difficult proposition. And with the 20 cards coming off the Corn Ferry Tour, it's going to make it even harder because now you're adding younger, hungrier, to a certain degree, better players into an equation where the someone Joel Damon's a great example. He's been a
Right.
mainstay on the PGA Tour for quite some time. He's struggling right now,
Yeah.
right? Like, and there was a time and a place on the PGA Tour in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s where the Joel Damons weren't going to have any problem maintaining status because those 25 cards make a huge difference.
Yeah.
But I like keeping the product sharp and new and giving new younger players a chance to make their name.
Well, that's an interesting perspective from yourself because I would never consider you a journeyman because you were as high as 20 in the world. You played on President's Cup teams. You won 4 times. But essentially, what you're saying is people like yourself or maybe just slightly below your status may be in real trouble. And how do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it because I love competition. I always love to know where I stood with regard to the best in the world, and I was so fortunate to be best friends with the best in the world. So I knew if I could just stay one step behind him, I would be about two steps ahead of everybody else. So Tiger was always my benchmark, and we grew up junior, college, professional. We were teammates on the Walker Cup team and the President's Cup team. So I always had that motivating me and pushing me, which is probably what allowed me to get to as high as 20th ranked in the world and win 4 times in a short period of time. I don't think if I wouldn't have been gotten injured after my second year on tour, I don't think I would have had a problem keeping my card. But the
Yeah.
fact that I did, it sort of did automatically thrust me into the journeyman category, and I'm okay with that. Like, professional sports has never been about mediocre performance. Professional sports has always been about the best. I want the PGA Tour to reflect the best golf in the world because we have to, because we've just maybe survived a period of time where there was some, you know, when Liv was really threatening the future of the tour. And I think it put a lot of people back. We weren't ready as an organization. Um, Jay Monahan was not ready, nor was the rest of the tour. But thankfully, we've had enough support from, I think, enough business leaders in the community to back the tour, but also, the Tigers, the Jordans, the Scotties, the Morikawas, the Hovlands, the JTs, everybody that stayed because they could have jumped ship. And in the modern era of
Yeah.
sports, when the brand's all about the me, when you're looking at 100, $200 million to jump ship, a lot of people in a lot of other sports would have done that.
Yeah, no question. And, Brian is not afraid. Brian Rolapp is not afraid to say we're going to make changes. He said we're going to respect the spirit and the tradition of the game, but we won't be bound by it. And the last conversation you and I had in person was in Maui. You, me, and Mark Rolfing at the Honolulu store, and they're in Kapalua. And, of course, the Century isn't being played this year because of what happened to the golf course. How concerned are you that the Century, as a sort of a launching point in Maui and then the Sony Open the next year, how concerned are you that those things might be things we won't see anymore on tour?
I don't know that the Century will ever go back, unfortunately, to Maui. I think it was ever since the days that it was hosting the Lincoln Mercury Championship and
Yeah.
watching Freddie win that, like it was his playground. And um, it's just the new era of the tour. I mean, we've got to take the circus where we're going to, and I hate to say this because this isn't really how I feel as a traditionalist, so to speak, but I'm also a realist and I've got an econ degree from Stanford and I understand the numbers. Like, if we don't protect the integrity of our product, there's not going to be a product in
Yeah.
5 to 10 years. So we need to know what our strengths are, and that's what we face to our fans, and because our fans want to see the best players, they want to see us come together. um Not a lot of people could get out to Maui to watch a golf tournament, but
Yeah.
I don't know that Sony will go away. I think that's a great place for us to start, the West Coast swing. I would love to see that be the springboard into the new season. Um, and then we just go from there. But I do think that there's going to be a retraction in the schedule. I do think that anybody that's sitting between, number 75 and 150, so that section of golf is really going to have to work hard to keep their status.
Listen, as someone who has roots in Maui and over in Kapalua, I hope you're wrong. I don't. I'm not sure you are. I would hate it if that was the case, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. For people that don't know, like your story, obviously you've always been associated with Tiger, as you said, because you grew up together, you played at Stanford together, you were one of his best playing partners in the President's Cups when you guys played together. How did you get involved in golf? What was your beginnings in the game?
Well, my dad, who um, and belated Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans.
Absolutely.
My grandfather was a Marine code talker,
Yeah.
and my father was in the Marines, and my brother served in the Marines. So, come from a very proud history of service to this country. And um, and when my dad got out of the Marine Corps, he ended up at College of Albuquerque, got a degree in computer program, ended up working here in Albuquerque at the Bureau of Indian Affairs as a computer programmer, and um, got to that, late 30s, early 40s, where the knees were broken down and couldn't go to the YMCA to play pickup hoop anymore. And so him and all of his buddies picked up golf, and it might have been the worst assemblance of golfers that has ever been brought together, because I saw duct tape on clubs. I
Yeah.
saw some of the worst swings and biggest slices, and that was my exposure to the game. My parents were divorced, so on the weeks that I was with my father, my brother and I, Clint, would tag along with him to his Thursday afternoon 9-hole beer league. And the golf was just a bridge for them to go drink beer in the Mesa.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of nights doing homework out on the Mesa, sitting in the truck, um, while they were talking about all the great shots they hit, which should have taken about 5 minutes because none of them hit any good shots. But that was it. I fell in love.
Yeah.
I fell in love with golf. I don't know why. And at the age of 9, I went to the local public course and asked for a job. I told the pro not to pay me, and he let me work there every summer until I turned 17. And when I was 17, I was the number one ranked junior in the country, headed to Stanford on a golf scholarship. So kind of created my own opportunities there, which is what I tell kids: don't let anything stand in your way if there's something that you really want to do in life.
Certainly inspirational. And you mentioned it earlier, Baxter. You've had some health scares besides the back surgery. I'd forgotten that you had that heart attack in 2014. That had to be like, what the hell is going on? You weren't that old at that point.
No, I was in my early 40s, and American Indians have a high incidence of type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And I've got a family history of that. I didn't realize that I was that exposed to something like that. And unfortunately, it hit me. Um, I mean, if you're going to have a health incident, I think a private golf club is the best place to do it if you don't
Yeah.
actually do it in a golf,
Yeah. At
because
a
it was like
hospital. Yeah.
like six doctors in the locker room, or right. I had people coming in to me, and um uh they were kind enough to call the ambulance and got me to the hospital and got the blockage cleared out, had two stents put in, and um thankfully haven't had
Yeah.
any problems since. But it's been a consistent decade of monitoring nutrition and wellness and staying fit, and just doing all of those things. And that's part of the advocacy that I have through our foundation's work at the NB3 Foundation with our young kids, is to know that, they have these predispositions toward certain chronic illnesses that, we just try and make sure that they're ready for.
Yeah, well, listen, it's great to see you healthy and moving, and you were a big part of NBC's coverage at the Ryder Cup, and obviously, that's my favorite sporting event of all time. I've said that a million times. I'll say it again. So I would love to get your thoughts on how we fix the U.S. Ryder Cup team. And again, they didn't play poorly. It's just that the Europeans played out of their minds. And, we had that great rally on Sunday, but we were just too far behind. And now we're in this thing where we've only won twice in the last 8 times we've had this event. How can we get more competitive at the Ryder Cup?
Well, we got a couple big issues. The first of which is that we haven't won on the road since '93.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
long time at the Belfry. Yeah.
so I don't know how many players on this next Ryder Cup would have actually been born the last
Yeah.
time we won, which is telling, meaning that it becomes one of these things in the historical timeline where the players are so far removed from it that I think it can be used as an advantage, because that they have this opportunity to reset history as far as the U.S. Ryder Cup competition is concerned. I think secondly, we should look a little bit more to the successes of the European side, and why are they so successful. I don't think we can replicate their type of camaraderie, because they grow up in a different type of cultural environment, just in the sense of, with the exception of the UK, they all operate off of a single currency, because they all agreed that that was in the best interest of the countries that did subscribe to implementing the euro as the baseline of currency within their country. If you're in Spain and you want to go skiing, you got to go to a different country. If you live in Switzerland, you want to play golf, you got to go south to the warmer climates. Like, there's much more sharing of things, and it's a much more sort of unified mentality, as Europe sits kind of in all the various countries. And it's also very easy to establish the Americans kind of as the Death Star, so to speak.
Right.
And so I think that we don't need to really change anything as far as how good our players are, because we do have the ability to win the Ryder Cup. It's just that it's synergizing them into a common focus around a singular goal, which is to go out there and be as prepared as possible, and to understand that, they kind of have to play for each other, which I think that they have to spend a little bit more time together. I don't think
Oh,
that these
yeah.
meetings, and right, because any coach will tell you, whether it's a Belichick, a Krzyzewski, that the time together, sweating blood and tears when nobody's watching, is the time when those bonds are formed. And You can't say that you're going to go out there and play for a guy when you just barely met him a month ago. Those are just things that I think that can be improved. And secondly, Luke Donald's only job the last 2 years was to be the Ryder Cup captain.
Right.
And so his singular focus every day was to get up and address Ryder Cup issues and fix Ryder Cup problems. I think that Keegan Bradley did a wonderful job with the fact that he also had another full-time job. And so when you're trying to win the Super Bowl of golf, you don't hire a coach that you allow him to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
You hire a coach that wants to be focused on winning the Super Bowl of golf. And I think that shortens the list quite a bit. And I think there's a lot of really good candidates out there that can create this synergy that the U.S. needs to take into this next Ryder Cup, because it is going to be hard, because the same list of people that went out there and just kicked our butts is going to
Yeah.
basically be the same. They're going to be
Yeah.
looking at almost the same identical team.
Yeah. And listen, and some people say, well, this was a stupid little thing or whatever, but I don't know if you saw the thing that Luke set up with that famous photographer of the European team in the like the 1920s and 30s New York, and they dressed up in these costumes. I really think that stuff matters. Like that group felt bonded in a way, and they played all those rounds together out on Long Island for days and days in a row. It's little things like that. It's so often in situations the little things become the big things, and I felt like just little gatherings like that are stupid, or just sort of not stupid, but off the whole thing of golf, but it just brought them together in a really fun way that bonded them in a way that I don't feel like the U.S. team ever is.
Yeah, and I think any coach in the traditional team sports, in terms of basketball and football, I think football coaches do an amazing job of it. I mean, I think that is inherently what separates the best football coaches from the mediocre ones, is that with so many players on the team, they still are able to create this culture and this sense of identity within the confines of the system that they've created. A little easier with basketball, you're dealing with a much smaller roster, but those are just team building exercises, right? The 5 a.m. workouts, the social events that you use, whatever coach uses to get the teams looking at other attributes of each other besides what they do on the field, I
Yeah.
think is critical in understanding and appreciating each other's families and backgrounds, and what they're good at, what they're not good at. I think all adds into this kind of element of understanding, so that when you do show up, you are shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, and if people haven't seen the video, it's pretty cool. They hired this incredible photographer. They shot in Grand Central Terminal. They went to the south side with the Brooklyn Bridge in the background. It's really fascinating, and just a little insight into how Luke was able to sort of get those guys cohesive. And hopefully, we'll see something like that from the U.S. at Adair Manor in 2027. Notah, listen, it's great to catch up with you, man. I appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your insights, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Now, a lot of fun, Trey. Thanks.
So once again, thanks to Notah Begay, and we'll see what happens with Tiger and what happens with the PGA Tour under Brian Rolapp's supervision. Once again, thanks for being with us. If you like the show, make sure you tell your friends. Make sure you click on that like and subscribe button wherever you're getting your podcasts, including on YouTube. And we'll be back real soon with another episode of Straight Facts Homie.